So The Punisher Season 2 came out on Friday, January 18th. I finished The Punisher on Saturday, January 19th because, it was very enjoyable. It was a good show. And listen, okay, let me get right into this. Jon Bernthal is incredible as the Punisher. When you see him playing this character, you're like, that's the guy. Like, he really brings his A game. Like, whoever cast him to play the Punisher really just needs a gold medal. Like, it's awesome. But there are going to be spoilers in this video, as the title implies. So, if you haven't watched Season 2 yet, go do that, and then come back. So, I am now going to start. Guys, this season of The Punisher was incredible. Like, I just couldn't stop watching it, which is, that's why I finished it the day after it came out. And I think a big reason for that is because this season isn't as slow as other Marvel Netflix shows. In the very first episode, Frank meets a girl, he gets in a bar fight, finds his kid who's doing some stuff. Then in the second or third episode, there's a shootout at a police station that really kinda had me on the edge of my seat, my dude. It was really tense, it just kinda felt like anyone could get shot at any time. But then at the end of the episode, Madani shows up and she's like, "Hey nerd, we're going back to New York," and Frank is like, "Okay." But the relationship between Frank and this kid is really interesting because she kind of thinks he's insane, but Frank actually does care about this kid despite how much she thinks he doesn't. So that's really interesting to see how their relationship grows and evolves throughout the season up until she, eventually leaves to go to a place that isn't New York. The whole Jigsaw storyline was really awesome as well, and I learned that they actually kind of changed his character a bit in the show. In the comics, he's called Jigsaw because when Frank cut him up pretty bad, they had to stitch his face back together and it looked like a jigsaw. But in the show, his name is Jigsaw because he doesn't really remember what happened to him. His thoughts and memories are all kind of a mystery and kind of in shambles. So they need to put his thoughts and memories back together like a jigsaw. So it was cool to see how they changed the character but still made it make sense. But also, he didn't really start to go crazy until episode 6, 7, or 8. One of those. Before that, the show kind of does a pretty good job of making you feel bad for him because all these people are just like, "Hey, that was pretty messed up," but he has no clue what they're talking about. So he just seems very vulnerable and innocent, but then he kills a guy, and then kills some more people, and then robs a place, and then you're like, well, But Ben Barnes is also incredible as Jigsaw because he's really good at that crazy look, And you could really see that he could essentially just kill anybody and feel basically nothing aside from Krista Dumont, which, with that relationship, definitely getting some Joker Harley Quinn vibes from that, but obviously they're not clowns, but I think you know what I mean. And I also really like how they took the time to develop Krista's backstory and explain why she has scars on her legs and back, and Billy kind of makes her go a little bit insane, which that's always fun. But just the whole Jigsaw storyline is really cool, and I like how Frank just straight up killed him at the end of the episode. Not at the end of the episode, at the end of the season. Literally, what am I saying? Frank just walks in, Billy's like, "Hey, what is up?" And Frank just freaking puts 2 bullets in him. Honestly, maybe not the best way to wrap up a story, but I thought it was kind of funny, so But I really like Jigsaw, okay? But I didn't like John Pilgrim. I just didn't care about him, and I understand that he has a lot to do with the story of this season, and I sort of understand what was happening with him. But I didn't care about him. And I feel like the big reason for that is because he wasn't really advertised that much. He made a couple appearances in the trailers, but it just kind of seems like he's in Billy's shadow, at least in the trailers. Obviously in the show they're just separate things, but Jigsaw was definitely the main focus of the trailers. If Pilgrim was advertised a bit more, maybe I would care about him. But I didn't. I thought Jigsaw was far more interesting in basically every single way. I didn't care about his whole religious thing. That was actually pretty annoying for me personally, and it's not because it somehow offended me or anything, but it's because I'm watching The Punisher. I'm sorry, but I didn't come here to hear about God. I came here to watch people get shot and maybe a little bit of stabbing. But I just didn't really care that much about that whole storyline, which might sound really bad because he does play a pretty big part in this season. He's the whole reason Amy's there, so it's kind of important. So that might sound like I didn't enjoy a lot of this season, but I enjoyed basically the entire season. I just didn't care about the scenes that revolved around just him. My enjoyment of Frank and Jigsaw far outweigh my disinterest in Pilgrim, so it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I think I've been on this long enough, and I'm sure you understand what I'm saying by now. But let's move on to something completely unrelated. Cinematography. I'm not the best judge of cinematography, okay, but I am specifically talking about long shots. There are 2 or 3 long shots in this season, and they're not Daredevil long shots where he's fighting the entire time and they take up half the episode. That's Daredevil's thing. this show isn't Daredevil. But there are a couple long shots that I just thought were, I thought they were pretty cool. Like the scene where Jigsaw and the boys were robbing the place. Does it count as a bank? I'm really not sure. But that was a cool long shot. There's a scene where Madani gets home and she's walking around her apartment doing stuff and there are no jump cuts. And the scene right after Frank kills Billy is awesome because Frank walks away and the camera zooms in on Billy and then it zooms out and the lighting has completely changed. Different characters are standing in the room, they're talking about stuff. Like, I find stuff like that impressive. So I appreciate stuff like that. I think it's kind of dope. But this next thing is kind of related to cinematography-ish, and that's editing. The editing in this show at certain times is awful. Like, okay, there's a scene where Frank is talking to Karen Page, and Karen says the word yeah in the audio, but the problem is she's on camera when that happens, and her mouth doesn't move. So, like, that's, there are also multiple times where you can hear the audio cut, and it's just really choppy, dude. Also, sorry if there's any background noise, we are currently making food. So I apologize. But it kind of makes it feel like this season was kind of rushed. Obviously, not every scene is like this, but like, come on, dude. What are you doing? I don't know, I just thought that was kind of weird and easily avoidable. It doesn't, like, make the show unwatchable, but it is noticeable, so, I figured I'd bring it up. And another quick thing that I wanted to mention was that I like that Curtis had stuff to do in this season. During season 1, I kind of forgot about him, but in season 2, he's doing stuff with Frank committing crimes, like, it's lit. I mean, there's not really much else to say, I just kind of enjoyed that. And the very last scene of the season was rather enjoyable. When the two gangs are like going back and forth in the empty warehouse and Frank just comes out of the shadows and lights them up. It was awesome. I don't know specifically what about the scene was awesome because, that's pretty routine for Frank. But it was awesome. Madani is with the CIA now, offers Frank a job. Frank is like, no kid, I already have a job, and then just goes and yeets on some nerds. It's fantastic. But overall, this season was freaking good. The Punisher is one of the Marvel Netflix shows that I'm actually upset about its cancellation. Like, I can do without Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, but the Punisher and Daredevil are so good, dude. Like, the Punisher especially is such an interesting character because he murders people, but only people that deserve it because his family was murdered in front of him. He's kind of a prick sometimes, but he still manages to be likable, interesting, and you can actually feel attached to him as a character. Gotta be honest, it's like pretty nutty that the writers can do that because, that you gotta be good at your job to be able to do that, because, I imagine it's tough, But yeah, I really like this season of The Punisher. Go watch it. It's awesome. The action is great, character development is great, stories are great. Even if I personally didn't care that much about one of the antagonists, I can still say that it was a well-rounded story. So I liked it. Go watch it. Now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have you seen The Punisher Season 2? If so, tell me what you think about it down in the comments. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. If you didn't, make sure to leave a dislike, jump off a bridge, whatever suits you. My name's Whitefire, and I'll see you on the flip side.